My business partner and I have worked with 17 startups, scaling them in the last 24 months. I also pitch, judge, and mentor tech startups at the Silicon Valley Alchemist Accelerator. And I'm a founding LP at the How Women Invest Fund 1. I want to introduce you. First, we have Uday Kiran Chakra. Please welcome him. Building AI clouds for security and safety. He's a 25-year veteran of the tech industry and holds 2 patents for innovative computer vision AI applications. Welcome. Then we have Apurva Dhornadula. She is an entrepreneur and engineering leader at Smartly.io, an AI-powered advertising technology platform. Prior to Smartly's AI product lab, she was co-founder and CTO at Space.ai, which was acquired by Smartly in 2021. Welcome, Pooja. And then we have Videsh Kanamuri, who is the managing partner of the fund Suvan Ventures. He invests in early-stage B2B Indian cross-border SaaS companies going global. And as managing partner at Arca Venture Labs, he led investments in 27 companies with 5 exits and 15 up rounds. And his last 3.5 years at IBM, he headed their startup initiative for India and South Asia geos, working exclusively with B2B startups and helped many companies scale. Welcome, Rajesh. I just want to mention, I could spend about 45 minutes just talking about their values itself. Please go to LinkedIn and take a look at their accomplishments. I wanted to really talk about their key moments of what we can talk today. So we're going to dive right in. First, we'll talk about the journey to startups and entrepreneurship. So Apurva, you're very unusual that, well, not unusual in the Silicon Valley. You started as a founder straight out of school. And did you ever consider joining a big company? Or was there an aha moment where it said, I'm a startup person, I'm not a company employee person?
Yeah, happy to talk to that. So what happened was I had 2 options, right? One is I could have kind of scaled the startup and continued working on it, or I had a return offer from my internship at Google to go back. So I had to make that exact decision that you were saying. And so my thought process was that, look, like Google is not going anywhere, they're not going to be bankrupt. If I really wanted to work at Google, I can do that anytime I wanted to do that. And so I feel like a lot needs to come into place in order to do a startup. The team needs to be right, the market needs to be right, the idea needs to be right. You need to have your own bandwidth to actually do it. And so the fact that those aligned when I was in school meant that there was something here, there was something special. So for me, it was never risky to do a startup. It was like my fallback plan was, okay, I'll actually get a real job. So it wasn't really a big deal.
So you never then looked back?
No. I might go back now if there's something interesting going on. I might go back now if there's like an interesting team. I think incumbents have a huge leg up in the Gen AI space, so maybe there is something there. But I don't regret the decision that I made.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me from this? It doesn't feel it's on. Okay, I can project my voice over. So Uday, you started off at Infosys and then PricewaterhouseCoopers, very large companies. And then you just made the switch to being a founder, a co-founder, a founder, co-founder, now you're founder. So you've gone through the whole thing of having another co-founder at Century AI. So, it's harder for people to imagine the shift from a really big company to being a founder. Like, what was that moment you realized that you were really a founder? You were a startup entrepreneur?
So I wanted to be an entrepreneur pretty much right after my undergrad. But the reality of people who come to US, you know very well, the immigration process, right? So I was never able to start a company right away. So the second reason was primarily the MBA program that I joined ended up with like almost 120K in debt. So it was prudent for me to clear that out. So I joined PwC, cleared it out, and now I felt I had built up a bank balance, and now I was kind of ready. But I never left that idea out of my head. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So that's the reason why I started becoming an angel investor. I invested in a bunch of startups. I was an advisor to some startups, and then I became a co-founder. All the while, I was really looking at artificial intelligence space. And as Apurva said, when the time comes, then this is the time to jump in. And that's exactly what happened to me. And then the rest of it started.
So I think anyone who's a startup founder considering a startup, remember, you have to have that itch. You have to understand the itch. You still have to be able to calibrate your life, which possibly could be very difficult. You have debt, you have young children, maybe your wife's going through a startup, etc. But I think there is a profile of a startup founder. And so my next question is really to you, Rajesh. You have a really large database of founders you've invested in. You have scaled founders. So you move them to exits, you move them to up rounds. So in your opinion, what are the key characteristics of an entrepreneur versus somebody who works in a large company?
So one of the things that we look into is that the ability of the founder to, or founders to execute. Now, when I say execute, it has to be across all aspects of a business, right from product to product market fit, go to market, the channel strategy, branding, messaging. So everything has to get right, and that's what I kind of look into those founders, whether they have the ability to execute and start understanding the market dynamics and ability to tweak the product as per the needs and requirements of the business. So that's one number one. And the other thing that we look into the founder is that the hunger to succeed, the ability to put in hard work. So that's the second thing we look into the founders. And obviously when we look into the business, we have to see whether the business is differentiated enough to cater to a specific business need of the market, and whether there's enough market opportunity for this business to go in. So that's the other aspect of it.
So I wanted to double click into what you just said, the ability to execute.
Yeah.
Now at large companies, you may have a passion for being a founder, but you have to swim in a lane. The only way to learn is to be at the startup and fail at these things and then learn and figure out again and again. So when you have invested in founders who perhaps been at very large companies and then had an idea and you executed on it? Do you think founders should have the ability to learn at a special different rate than people who may not be founders?
Yeah, and so my focus area is B2B SaaS, and typically when founders of B2B SaaS, they would have worked in large enterprises and corporates. That's when they see a specific niche or an area that has not been solved, and then they come out of those companies and then start their own companies. So very important for them to keep their hunger and passion to learn new things and figure out where they can go about starting their own companies. And as you rightly said, I mean, when you're working in corporate, you have to actually swim in a specific line. But whereas in the case when they're own entrepreneurs, there is nothing like a definition of a line. So you can go all about, and it's a two-way thing. You can succeed or you may not also. So that's when we look into the founders who have the ability to succeed when they are working in a very unstructured environment, and then they can draw their own drawing.
So I think failing at different things, for example, at my startups, I had no idea how to do pricing. I was so distraught that I've become a pricing expert. It's almost driven to learn things that you would never have come from.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. And what happens is that you have, that's when you need mentors and advisors. And in my case, I come with a strong operational background. I've worked with IBM for 18 long years. across technology, across business development, across sales, consultancy. So I provide very pointed inputs, and I come in a very early stage. And there are certain areas which they are not very familiar with. If I take the examples of Indian beauty science companies, they're very good in product and technology. But when it comes to GTM, marketing, branding, and they need a lot of improvement. So that's my very pointed inputs comes in those areas.
So let's talk about, and maybe Apurva, we start with you on the next question. 35 ideation. Let's start with the first step, okay? Ideation. And I'm glad you raised that because I actually have a question for you after that. So 35% of startups fail because there is no market need. And I'm not surprised because I cannot tell you the number of times I'm approached by people saying they have this idea, and I'm thinking, is this an aspirin or is this a vitamin, right? So Apurva, for you, what was the ideation you did when you started viralspace.ai?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually didn't even start with ideation. We started with a problem. So we had, we started with a lot of the problems that we've seen in the marketing space. So my co-founder, he was actually having issues with social media marketing in his previous company. And so that was kind of where we started. And then we were like, all right, well, how big is this problem actually? So we went out in the streets of Palo Alto, knocked on doors, talked to a lot of people, see like, do you actually have this problem? Like, would you pay? Like you were mentioning, like, is it a vitamin or is it an actual pill, right? Would people actually pay for it? So I think that really helped helped us gain the confidence that we were building something that was worth building and not building it because it's cool or building it because we wanted to. Like, I think building something that's cool is more of a hobbyist thing and not really where you should start when you're starting a company.
So Uday, did you have an ideation or you found a problem that you were going to solve?
So, as I said, I was sure that I was going to be an entrepreneur. Now I didn't know what to work on. So it so happened that unfortunately my garage was broken into. I live in Mountain View, probably a stone's throw away from Google, and I felt very safe. And it was very disruptive moment for me that with all these cameras, someone could actually come and break in and take stuff, and was not even caught for quite some time. So I was thinking, if I have this problem, do other people have the problem? So I actually immediately went to the Mountain View Police Department, the kind of lieutenant who was working on this, and asked him, hey, does this happen often? Are people finding any other solutions? And he said, nothing. I'm like, what, really? I mean, there are burglaries happening left, right, and center, and then there's no solution, and nobody's working on it. It's like, dude, I have an artificial intelligence background, and I think I can solve this problem. What do you think? And the point where I decided, like, okay, this is the thing to do, is when he told me, hey, if you build it, I want to invest. I'm like, oh, a police officer wants to invest in my company. Literally the same day, I went and incorporated the company and brought him in as my first investor and advisor. So that's basically how our company Sentry started. So it came with a personal problem, but was kind of validated by an industry expert. So I think those were the two elements, and then I was lucky to find the right team and so on and so forth. But the origin was precisely this personal problem validated by an industry expert.
I don't know if you were lucky to find a team, but we'll talk more about it later. But Ridesh, I have a question. You said that you invest and you actually work much earlier. So if you are at the ideation, do you ever do ideation stage with them?
Rarely, but I would want to have an MVP in place before I.
Yeah. So how at that point, MVP is still very early because clearly the MVP is not what you said eventually.
Yeah.
So what kind of competitive differentiation are you looking at if they are at late ideation, maybe or MVP, still maybe don't have paid customers, but are beginning to do pilots, paid pilots perhaps? So what are the key competitive differentiations do you think are important at that stage?
Oh, absolutely. So I think you mentioned about vitamins and painkillers. I'll probably put one more, life-saving drugs.
Actually, that is fantastic. That's a really fantastic point.
So if the startup is something akin to a life-saving drug, just go blindly and invest into that company. When it comes to painkillers, then we'll have to consider many points. And the third thing is vitamins, then like to stay away from as far as possible. Now coming to the market, what are the things that we look into? One is the market opportunity. If there is a large market opportunity and that market needs are still not met enough, but let's say for example, if there is a 10 million market opportunity and there are like players who are catering to that market opportunity and they have like just captured 500 million of the 10 billion opportunity, even then let's go ahead with that. But if there is a already competitive space, obviously the market opportunity, it's a 1 billion opportunity and then 500 million is already captured. Now we need to look into that, the new entrant that is coming in, how then the differentiation aspects come into play. Now the differentiation can be many ways. One is product differentiation, second is technology differentiation, what kind of features sets they have, whether they're an IP. Third is that if they are looking into very specific niche market segment, it would be like, for example, the existing players are focusing on enterprise market. Now, can this new entrant, can you just look into the SMB space, looking at targeting customers in revenue of 10 million to 100 million? So that's the third thing that we look into. The differentiation can be in other ways in which whether they are looking into like the way they serve the customer. We have like customers directly, like selling directly to customers versus they are a product-led growth. That's the second. That's the other thing that we look at. So then obviously the economic differentiation. When it comes to products that are getting developed in India, the economic differentiation actually comes as a natural thing for companies. So yeah, multiple factors that we look into while the differentiation.
So my next question is around, so we have ideation, we are thinking about this. Is there a market? Is there a pain point? Is it going to be a drug? Is it going to be an aspirin? Product market fit, right, is the next stage. So there's this interesting statistic I found out that 40% of companies fail because they cannot find product market fit and are unable to pivot from an idea they're in love with, right? I think when we have an idea for a startup, we are so passionate about that idea that making that pivot is really, really difficult. So my question first for you, Radesh, is that entrepreneurs can be very unclear about what product market fit is. So sometime I spoke, I think it was 2 months ago, I spoke to a founder, and she mentioned that they had sent their idea to a bunch of people and the people liked it. And she said, well, we have product market fit. And I said, is any of them going to pay for it?
Yeah.
And she said, oh, is that what's supposed to be? And I said, not just pay for it, but can you get $1 million?
Yeah.
Right? You know, can you get 100,000 customers?
I will probably ask, can you get 10 million?
Okay, we're going to go with the 10 million. So, could you talk about some more in detail about product market fit that you look for, that you look for at Sugan and Aqua?
Yeah, so that's a very important thing when most of the founders, when they start up their companies, they typically don't look into the product market fit. So again, coming to the basic questions about what are the pain points that they want to solve and how they want to solve, how they want to bring in the differentiation, and the differentiation could be in many aspects that I mentioned previously. So I would say that fundamental thing that they can go about starting is that look into the pain points, how deep that particular pain point is. If it is a very like kind of akin to a life-saving drug, then wonderful. If not, if it is like a aspirin, okay. If it is a vitamin, then obviously you need to avoid going into that space. But again, there are companies who have done decently well when they are in that space as well. The first and foremost thing is that look into that particular segment and then see that how you would offer the differentiation there. And then if those things are coming up, well, then start doing some interviews with prospective customers and validate your thing, whether whatever I'm suggesting is really making sense to that particular customer, and then ask that specific question that if I'm going to come with a solution, whether you're really going to buy that product or not. So having this done, but again, there are no hard fast guarantees that this will work, but at least you have the basic groundwork ready before you're setting it right. And then once you are into the like startup, and then that's when you go about selling to the customers, understanding what is resonating, what is not resonating, how you can tweak your market strategies, whether you want to, okay, this particular industry, for example, healthcare is not working for me, so let me see if my solution works for retail tech. For example, we had invested in a company called Obviously.ai, that's a horizontal no-code machine learning tool, and we figured out that what the industry that really works for them is insurance after a lot of iterations that we want against different market segments. So those are things in which they have to constantly think about and go about tweaking their product and towards the market.
So, Uday, you are 6 years into Sentry AI. Do you feel you have product market fit? Did you have to go through a number of iterations and mini pivots or larger pivots to get to the point where you're right now?
Yeah, so a priori, you actually don't know you have a product market fit. So by definition, right? So if there's a well-known problem which is going to produce revenue, someone else would have already solved it. So the only way you find the product market fit is through iterations. So from our perspective, again, we started off with the home market. We said, okay, I personally had the problem with as a homeowner. So let me start solving problems for other homeowners. But very quickly we figured out that you cannot make money there. And that's when we pivoted to the business side. And that's what we've been doing so far. And again, it's always difficult to say when you finally found it, but we make good revenue, we got very large customers. So that part is good. Again, you always keep looking at the revenues and see how fast they're growing to finally confirm that you hit that particular product market fit. So it's a tough question to ask, and as an entrepreneur, I'm always very biased. I think I always have it, or I know I'm going to find it. So it's typically the investors, who tell, where we are in the journey and whether we need to move faster, we need to change. So I think that's basically my perspective on product market fit. It comes through iterations. You have to try again and again different ways. Some will yield some revenue, some will yield you a lot more revenue. In a way, it's almost like trying to find the vein of gold. So you dig somewhere, you get some gold. It can be very big, it can be very small. Until you dig further, you don't know how deep it is. Then you figure out, oh wait, stop, go somewhere else. So that's basically how I see product market fit.
Thank you. That's actually a great analogy. So Purva, I have a question for you. At the point where you sold Viral, did you think you have product market fit?
I think we were close to finding it, but I don't think we had it at that time. At that time we had 3 customers, and what ended up happening was that one of our customers was a mutual customer of Smartly, and they wanted what we were doing inside the Smartly product. And so they were a tier 1 customer of Smartly, and they knew that Smartly was trying to do what we were doing. So I think if we had chosen to take the term sheet and gotten a mango seed, we would have, continued and tried to continue to get product market fit, but I don't think we were there when we sold.
So I think that product market fit is so connected to go-to-market, right? You iterate, you try, you make a slight pivot. If you really look at successful companies like eBay, PayPal, even Uber, they have significantly shifted their go-to-market. They've shifted the product. So how did you, Purva, at Viral, you had 3 customers, how did you create that first go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, maybe I'll start a little bit pre the idea we actually went to market with. So when we were actually, my other 2 co-founders and I were all in school when we started this. And so this was 6 months before we were all graduating. So we actually had a different product solution idea to the problem we were trying to solve, which was helping brands get content, basically. So we actually created a marketplace where nano influencers could sell their content, and we did this for 6 months. We had maybe 1,000 creators or so on the platform, but then we weren't getting enough pull from brands, so we pivoted into what we were doing now. And so the way that we did this time is, since it was B2B SaaS, the playbook that one of our investors suggested to us is get a customer advisory board. So try to build a product that maybe a few customers will absolutely pay for, and then iterate from there, see how you want to grow, see if those customers are the actual profiles that you want to be selling your product to. So that was instrumental for us, like being able to design with customers really helped us with iteration.
So before we go to investment, which is going to be a very interesting deep dive. So Uday, you talked about moving from this home security to big customers. What is your differentiation right now between the large customers and small customers? Do you see yourself, how you're differentiating? Is your hockey stick growth going to come from much smaller customers or larger customers, or is it still not visible to you as yet?
Yeah, so once we pivoted from home to the commercial, even commercial has so many segments, all the way from small businesses like auto dealerships, could be construction sites, offices, to large enterprises. These could be Google, like Microsoft. They also need security. So, and to begin with, we literally tried everything. We just wanted to see where things might stick. So, in our case, again, we have some very large customers who signed up, and we have nearly 1,000 small customers who have signed up. So it's always very hard to pick a particular segment in advance. I think you just try and then see where it goes. And from our perspective, the product is the same. It's the go-to-market which is different. And so right now, our focus has been primarily on very large customers, and they have much larger sales cycles, but the ACV, the annual contract value, is much higher. So that is where we are really focusing. And there's also kind of a method to this madness in terms of iterating. When we started with the home, the product was very small, and it would support maybe about 4 cameras. And when we go to the SMBs, now you need to support about 8 to 10 cameras. And when you go further up, the product complexity increases. So over time, our product kept adding that support for a lot more complexity, and we kept adding customers who are the next tier. So in that fashion, we have been growing organically, at the same time unlocking different segments along the way. So in that sense, I think the product market fit and the go-to-market always together. In the sense, you try different GTMs to see which one unlocks your product market fit. So in our case, at least, we found currently that basically going after these large customers is what's really paying result at this point.
So now shifting to investments. So Rajesh, I know you've talked quite a bit about the ability to execute. You've talked about, is this going to solve a big problem? What is the market size? But what are the founder characteristics? Because you invest in a person early stage, right? It's the founder you're going to invest in. It's not, it's not even perhaps the team. They may not have a large enough team. So what are you looking for in that founder or co-founders when you invest in them?
So some of the characteristics are the well articulated they are. There have been like sometimes pitches that founders just ramble around, and it's actually difficult to say that, okay, can you please stop it and then just come to the point. So that's definitely no from an investment point of view. But the kind of investors we have, founders that we invest in are they know what problem they are solving and how they are solving it, and to the point. So that's the first and foremost thing. The second thing is that founders, if they are like co-founders, are they complementing each other? So one founder might be very good on the technical side, the other founder could be good on the business side, about the sales side. So that's the second thing that we look into in terms of synergies. And the third thing is that previous past background, whether that is complementing the solution that they are going for. And obviously the ability to put in effort and hard work Again, there is a new, another set, not new, but a set of characteristics called lifestyle business. So it's a nightmare for a VC to, if they invest in a lifestyle founder. So, well, lifestyle founders, what I mean is that they are making decent revenues and then it's good enough. They are not very much worried about scaling and all that. So that's, they'll probably put like 3 to 4 hours of effort maybe daily, or maybe even that, not that much to spend. Definitely to avoid those founders.
Myself, I'm a fan of 9 slide decks. If you need to tell me your story in more than 9 slides, I think you need to rethink the idea. It's a bit harsh, but I've reviewed something like 400 slide decks, so now I'm very harsh on slides. So I wanted to ask you there, on the other side, you're a serial startup founder, you've invested as an angel investor, but could you put on your hat as your founder hat and say, what is your journey of raising capital? What are the lessons you've learned and things that you wish you had done differently if you knew what you know now?
Yeah. So my journey was slightly different in the sense I kind of incubated my startup with my own money to begin with. But as I said, my first investor was this police officer, and then he brought other police officers and security executives as investors and advisors. So that gave me the confidence to put a lot of my own money to begin with. But the pivotal point was after we built the MVP and deployed it in a bunch of homes and we showed it, then I was comfortable to go to angels. And these were typically folks who I studied with. They were my classmates from IIT, they were classmates from Duke. These were the people who knew me. And as I think already Rajesh mentioned, like when you raise money, you don't have any other data. You just look for the past behavior of this person. Is the person trustworthy? Is the person smart, hardworking? So from my perspective, those, if I could demonstrate it to these people, then I can raise money. So those were my first contacts who gave me money. And after that, then once the product got deployed and I had more data points, I could go to investors who didn't know me at all. So I think that was my journey. So I started with my own money, then I had those who kind of trusted me, vouched for me, so they were my next tier investors. Then the third was the professional investors, including the last few were the billionaire Tim Draper, we had Mark Randolph, who was the first CEO of Netflix. So these guys obviously did not know me, but I brought the company and the product to the stage where they could feel that, okay, there is something here and I can back this person, right? And the team and the company. I think that's probably the journey of raising capital. At least till the Series A. And I think you can talk, others can talk about the rest.
So Apurva, you bootstrapped, right?
We were actually in an accelerator at first, and then we raised like from institution.
So can you talk about your experience to get to the accelerator and what value did you find in the accelerator?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we did the Village Global Accelerator, and the reason why it was so helpful to me and my team is that we were all first-time founders and we were all students. So there was also like this lack of like broader industry experience that we didn't have. So doing the accelerator kind of helped us catch our blind spots. We were automatically open to a whole network of people that are experts. Like you mentioned pricing, like we talked to someone who's like the pricing god, you know? So that was extremely helpful for us. And then we went, after we got our first couple customers and they had letter of intent, then we actually got seed investments.
So I have a question which is perhaps not related to your startups, but I want to talk a little bit about evaluations. Okay, everyone wants unicorn evaluation, right? Despite the fact that 99.99% of unicorns fail. Okay? So we are so in love with them. And I think I've reached the stage, at least now, I'm like, you're a unicorn, that's a donkey with a horse with a tube on its forehead, right? And I'm not dissing anyone because I myself am a startup person. But I would love the thought of any of you that by focusing on this unicorn status, do you think you're really doing justice to startups and their value, which should be built up, right? carefully, because the result is you too many unicorns and then everyone's like, okay, this is wrong, right? So, anyone of you wants to answer this, please?
Yeah, so unicorns, I think from VC's point of view, especially early stage investors, if any of the company gets a unicorn, for example, out of the 20-25 investments that I'm making, if one company goes into unicorn status, I'm done. It not only returns, I mean, good returns, but mega returns. So,
But 0.01% chance, right?
so I would say like I would maybe I will take it. And mine is a very niche fund. I just focus on B2B, SaaS, India, US, cross-border, early stage. So when you're tying all the different uncertainties around that and my previous background and the kind of track record and all that, so that kind of increases the probability. So that's what I would say from that. So, so obviously we want all the companies to hit the unicorn mark for sure. Now, you rightly said, like for example, if I take the case of Indian unicorns, right now there are like close to 140 unicorns, and there was an article that I had read last month that out of the 140, only 19 were profitable, and the rest all were burning a huge amount of money. So that's not a great signal according to me. And so my emphasis would be that you have to be having on the path of profitability, and then later on you can further scale and reach unicorn status. It's not that difficult. Just that, especially when I'm talking about B2B SaaS companies. So definitely it has to be a profitability to show that, and then hit the unicorn mark. That would be the ideal way to come there.
So for me, I think definitely I would love our startup to be a unicorn for a completely different reason. I think a unicorn is a marketing label. It helps you basically open more accounts, like you can get meetings with customers. It will help you hire more talent. It will help you get other investors, excited about what you're doing. But the fundamentals are completely, independent. Whether you have product market fit, whether you've got a great product, great team, they're completely independent of this unicorn label. I think that's probably explains why, even within unicorns, you have such a high failure rate. But I think it's the other phrase that Rajesh used is it increases the probability of success because it helps you raise capital, it will help you attract the right, probably more qualified people. So it's increasing the odds by a little bit, but I think if the fundamentals of the business are not sound, any labels that you put on top are not going to be of any help. So from an entrepreneurship perspective, or as an entrepreneur, I'm always trying to find whether my product is solving a real problem and whether this is a solid business or not. And everything else is all marketing labels on top. And they're nice to have, but they don't alter your fundamental reason for existence, which is to solve a real problem which has an ability to make money, right, eventually. Yeah.
I don't think I have anything to add to that.
So after the raise, so you've been successful, you get the raise, you've raised friends, family, maybe with VCs, seeds, etc. I wanted to talk to 2 points here. One, Arturo, I'd love you to, and also Videsh to talk about this. So how important are co-founders in today's atmosphere of speed? Literally having no time to learn on the job, right? And so I'd love for Apurva, you to start because you were fresh out of school and you were co-founder.
Yeah, absolutely. I think co-founders is what kept me sane throughout my startup journey. So what happened was we all took a class together. It was called Startup Garage. And so what was great about it was that it was so interdisciplinary. So I came from the computer science side, one of my co-founders came from the business school side, and the other one came from the design side. So what was great is that we were very self-sufficient, just the three of us, to do anything. Build product, we can do that. Design, we can do that. Go to market, we can do that. Sales, we can do that. Business plan, fundraising, we can do that. And the only reason we had to scale and hire more people is because we couldn't handle it at that point ourselves. So that gave us a lot of independence, a lot of autonomy. And then the other thing is that you have someone to lean on, because this is a very like up and down process. Like sometimes it's very nice to be able to talk to someone about, I'm not feeling that XYZ is good. How can we do better? How can we brainstorm? And that's not something you can do with just anyone, right? If you're actually in it and you're actually working together, it can make a huge difference. But at the same time, I'll also say that mismatched co-founders is also a big reason startups fail or break apart too. So it's honestly, they can make or break whatever startup you end up doing.
If you can talk about the co-founders as you look at funding startups, what is the level of importance do you put on having a set of co-founders versus a solo founder?
Yeah, so basically, if there is a synergies between the co-founders, what I have seen in my portfolio companies is that one co-founder is good on the technology side and takes the typical CTO, or there's one co-founder who is basically very good on the operation side, the customer success side, implementing things on the company side, and then one co-founder who is on the sales side, like good on the sales and on the go-to-market side. So these things are basically, if they are able to complement each other, that's a very good combination to have it. The second thing that one has to look into is the camaraderie between the co-founders, so critical. If that is not there, I think it's bound to fail in the coming years. So important to kind of understand where they have met, how they have met, how long has been their association, and then go for it. If it is a case of just one single founder, it's fine. We look into the all-rounded the experience of the single founder to look into it, and this could be controversial. We normally are little not inclined towards husband-wife co-founders.
I think that's a recipe for disaster. I'm so sorry. For experience. That is very interesting. So, talking about this co-founder leadership, Uday, I would love to talk to you and start with this. So, how did you, as a single founder, demonstrate leadership at this stage of the company? I mean, you built a company, you're a solo founder. As Ridesh said, execution in the end wins, right? And when you say to a founder, execution wins, it's not that we're saying that the idea is bad, but we're saying that unless you execute the idea. So you have a lot of responsibility on you, right? As a solo founder. So I'd love to hear your insights about your leadership.
Yeah, so this concept of founder, co-founder and all, it's a bit fungible. So it's true that I started off by myself. I was uniquely qualified in the sense that I was already a software programmer before I went to business school. So that's what I did at Infosys. And after business school, I had all the business skills. So I could technically build a product myself, sell it myself, but obviously that can't scale. So I was very lucky to meet basically who I brought on as a co-founder eventually, who had very strong technical experience. And when I explained what I really wanted to build, which was, hey, think of a security guard, how can I have this security guard from a software perspective, like a software-based security guard everywhere? Whether it's a home, it's an office, or a public place, it's like a restaurant, or all the way to government buildings, airports. There are all these security guards. How can I move that functionality from a person to software? And then I was looking I talked to a lot of them, and then I found the resonance with a few who kind of got it, and they said, hey, I can do it, I can build it. So that's who became like my co-founder. And just a very interesting thing, and probably happens only in the US, not in India. I had two of my managers who I reported to.